Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Do pull through with us ahead of the break. I hope the lunchtime carb slump is over. Yeah, we're Zappar and Immersal. I'm Connell, the CTO here at Zappar, and I'm joined.
And I am May Masson, and I am the head of developers community at Immersal.
And we've been working together on something really interesting, which we're calling the match made in AR heaven. At Zappar, we've been working in the XR space for 13 years now, which is dinosaur years in our industry. And in that time, we've been building creative content for brands and businesses, but also building a creative platform to enable developers to build those types of experiences. And we are just super stoked to announce our partnership with Immersal.
Yes, and Immersal is a Finnish company. We were founded in 2015 and acquired by Hexagon in 2021. We offer the most versatile visual positioning system in the world.
So the combination of our two offerings is something special. Effectively, Zappar can provide two key technologies. One which is high-quality creative tooling for the web, and the second is web-based computer vision tracking for the web also. And Immersal brings their best-class visual positioning system, and the result is an enterprise-ready augmented reality platform that's localized to the physical world, but delivered, and this is the key bit, to users in their web browsers. May, would you like to tell us a bit more about the Immersal?
Yes. So basically, I'll talk a little bit about Immersal, but before I talk a little bit about Immersal, I would like to talk about visual positioning system. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term visual positioning system, because it can be used in different ways. So you can think about that as location-based experience. So visual positioning system, you need to do two things to be able to use the VPS. The first thing that you need to do, it's a map. So you need to do the map of the place. So to do the map, if it's a small place, you can even do the map using a phone or a tablet, like I just did today, to the demo that you will show in a minute. So you can do the map basically taking multiple pictures from your phone, from different angles, with some overlapping. So with that, you create a spatial map. And if you have a larger environment, you could use, for example, a 360 camera or a Leica device, for example, BLK to go, BLK Arc, and BLK to fly, all depending on the environment that you need to map. Once you have done the map, you will receive the point cloud, the spatial map. With that spatial map, you can easily integrate that into Mattercraft, so you can basically import that into Mattercraft, and you can create your AR experience on top of that. And with that, you can localize using any browser, so basically both iOS and Android devices. You can do on-cloud localization and on-device localization. One important thing about Immersal is about the data ownership, different from other companies where if you do the map is theirs, so they have ownership of the map. With Immersal, you have the data ownership. So you own the spatial map, the content that you create, and then you can decide where to share, how to share, and who can use it. So this is all in your control. Then you have a few options. You could do cloud-based if you would like to have more storage and retrieval of the space maps from the cloud, or if you would like to save bandwidth and run offline, you can use on-device localization. And then if you are working with a client and you would like to keep the data on their servers or on your servers, you can use our on-premise deployment. If you're thinking about scalability, so this is a real map that we have done of Helsinki. So here you can see from a small statue up to few city blocks, and it can be even larger than that. So no space is too big. You can map warehouses, you can map theme parks, museums, stadiums, the whole city, if that's what you need. So here the key is, if you can scan it, you can basically augment it. So it basically can be from a small desk, your room, an office, a conference place, or anything at all. If you can scan it, you can augment it. Here are some of the use cases. Those are real use cases. I just need to clarify here that For these videos, they were done using Immersal Unity SDK. However, I can assure you that both of them can be done also with Mattercraft in a very easy way. So the first video that you can see, it's about the navigation for maintenance team. So you can have some kind of avatar that will guide the maintenance team to the place that they need to go. So you can have some bin overlays, you can have any additional information. And on the second video, what you saw, it was about overlaying some data about the machinery or about the equipment that the maintenance team will need. You can use that to create some remote assistance or even to visualize any data that you need to be physically linked to the geospatial. So if you have one data that okay, I need this data to be exactly here because this is the equipment that needs to have this information, you can do it. Then with Mattercraft, you can do it just as easily.
Thank you. So what we've seen so far have been some great foundational technologies. And as May mentioned, those examples she was showing were built with Unity. And so those were native apps running on people's phones that they've downloaded from the App Store, which is great. That works. But at Zappar, we believe in the web. We think of the web as like the ultimate app distribution platform. It allows users to get straight into experiences very quickly, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The problem was there was no great 3D tooling for the web, and that's why at Zappar, I should say, we've built Mattercraft. Think of it a little bit like Unity for the web. It's a complete 3D development environment for building content, and it's been built from the ground up to embrace the web ecosystem. Now, there's a huge number of features with Mattercraft and a huge amount about what is conceptually important about Mattercraft that we've imbued in it as we've been building it. I'm not going to take you through all of that today because otherwise we would be missing dinner. So instead what I'll do is I'll focus on the Immersal use case that we're talking about. But first let's think a little bit about why the web is great and why for in particular this type of user experience it's really important. So users can access content quickly if it's delivered through their web browser. They don't have to do an app installation. As we know, users are going to, if they've got to install an app, like me, I go to the App Store, I select the app, and then I put my phone down, or I go to TikTok or something like that. I go away from the user flow to wait for that app to download, and then when I think it's likely to have been downloaded, I'll go back and try and have that experience. When we're delivering, in particular, short-form or utility experiences to users, we can't afford that gap in the user experience. We have to take the user on the journey all the way. And that's why the web captivates and keeps the user in that process. When a user is visiting an experience in the web browser, no space is taken up on their device or in their mind. So we're not asking the user to have 1/20th of their world, which is, I suppose, what happens to each of the apps on their home screen, to be present on their home screen forever. What we're saying is go into the browser, have this experience. It is ephemeral, as in you're going to have it, and at the end of the experience, you're going to go away and do something else. That's fine, though, in these user use cases. We don't necessarily have to take up some mind share from the user and have it be an app on their screen. However, if users do want to keep that experience around, all the browsers allow users to add a website to the home screen of their phone so they can get straight back in. That's what would be called a progressive web app. But there are also great reasons why enterprise should be interested in running experiences in the web. The first is when you're deploying to the web, you don't need to manage enterprise-level app deployment. So you don't need to go to Apple and ask them for permission to have an enterprise certificate in order to distribute internal apps for your users. You can instead deploy over the web on intranets, etc., and completely forgo that process. You don't need to submit your apps to Apple. So Apple don't have to do any reviews, and you don't have to have a public app store presence for the content that you're wishing to serve. That's also important for specific use cases. So, for example, in medical or in alcohol or gambling use cases, where the App Store is not appropriate and Apple have specific rules around. If you're deploying through the web, then, of course, you make sure it works with your own regulatory requirements, but you don't have to do the convincing of Apple. And importantly, you can build content once and deploy it across iOS and Android in one go. None of this building 2 apps to target each audience. Instead, it's just a web page. It runs in any web browser. And importantly, you can leverage existing infrastructure and processes for web deployment. So if your organization already has structure for deploying web content, you can leverage it with WebAR. What Mattercraft produces when you're building an experience for a Mattercraft experience is a little web page. And so if you've got self-hosting or an intranet or any processes around that, you can work with it. It also, therefore, works with your existing web analytics. So let's say you're using Microsoft Clarity or you're using Google Analytics, for example. All of that can just work. And then there's also a layer that's technically integrated with web development. And so that means if you have internal developers in your organization who build and deploy web content, this works with their workflows as well. So they'll use words like continuous integration and continuous development, for example, or revision control. These sorts of things are all supported by Mattercraft, and it's not we're providing, it's not that we're providing that functionality in Mattercraft. What we're doing is leveraging your existing functionality. So let's go through a little demo that May and I put together this morning. So the first step in building a physically located AR experience is mapping. So this is the expo hall on the other side of the road, and May is going through with the iPad here and taking screenshots or photographs as she walks through the space. The plan here is that we're going to allow users to get to the Zappar booth, of course the most important booth in the expo hall, with the minimum of fuss and without having to worry about the other booths. So as she's going along, she's adding images to that map, and Immersal's fantastic VPS is processing all those images to produce a spatial map of the space. The next thing we do is we go into Mattercraft, our creative tool, and we add the map just by adding our map ID from Immersal's portal into Mattercraft. And you can see here a representation of that space that's been automatically generated by Immersal. And we can add content into that space in Mattercraft. So we're looking at the booth here that is our booth in the expo hall, and we're adding some content, in this case, a location marker. And it's a development process here that feels much like a low-code or Pro to Unity type development experience. So you can make this content. I'll just play this video again so that we've got a bit more time with it. We can make this content here in an environment that's both powerful but also familiar. We also see that we've blocked out some spaces for the route for the user and other bits like this so that we can enable a navigation type user experience in this space. And then finally, the bit is what happens when the end user comes to that place. So we can see they're running in Safari here. This is just on an iPhone, a normal iPhone, no app installation. The user initializes in space by pointing their camera into it, and the Immersal system, plus Zappar's tracking, has identified exactly where in that expo hall the user is, and it's able to render, in this case, just a super simple bit of navigation UI to help the user move in that space. So the things here that have been the challenging solves are taking Immersal's VPS and integrating it into Mattercraft, and we've done that challenging bit. The easy bit is then bringing content into that to enable the specific use case that you want to provide to your users. So in this case, as the user moves through the space, Immersal is continuously updating its localization. Zappar is tracking the movement of the user frame to frame to make a smooth user experience, and the content with Mattercraft is being served to the user. So a fully seamless end-to-end process that the user got into by scanning a QR code or clicking a link, no app installation required. I've got a few more examples of things that are possible because Mattercraft's a really powerful tool. In this case, we have on the left a map, but on the right we can see what the user sees, and there's a physics-based engine running here that's reacting to the physical environment that the user's in. So these Mattercraft logos are kind of bundling forward and hitting off the sofa. So it's obviously like a toy experience, but what it's showing is physics, like real-time physics, the type of experience you would expect to be a native app running at high performance in the web. We have another little example of physics here. Let it load up. And in this case, it's similar. We have an initialization phase. You saw that the user gave permission to access the camera and motion data, as any web page would have. And we have a simulated environment with physics reacting to the physical elements in the space. And then just to show another feature of Mattercraft, Mattercraft has full timelining and animation built in. Again, just a little example, a toy experience, but it shows that a full development environment, we're neither compromising on the end user experience in terms of how that feels for the end user in the browser, but we're also not compromising in terms of what's possible to create. So it's not like Mattercraft has to be a lo-fi version of a creative development platform because it's targeting the web. Mattercraft can be a proper development environment. And the ultimate result here is that the combination of Zappar's World Tracking and Mattercraft means we are closing the gap between what's possible in apps and what's possible in the web. And to kind of circle back round with Immersal, it's the combination of these things, that closing the gap with native, the best-in-class visual positioning system from Immersal, that then enables that enterprise-ready augmented reality that's physically located in the real world and delivered to users in their web browsers with a minimum of fuss. It is the match made in AR heaven. Very good. Well, that is what we came here to say, so let us know if there are any questions.
Yes, there is a question.
Hello. Thank you for your introduction. One question, what is the biggest space in AR with the indoor navigation? What's running on your system or application?
May, that's maybe one for you.
So one of the biggest space that we have mapped is Mall of Tripla in Helsinki. It's 85,000 square meters. It's a shopping mall.
And it works also with the different floors, or how do you manage the elevators?
Yes, it works also with different floors. We just need to make sure that we have unique features in each floor, so we can have maps from different floors and combine them using Immersal.
And but the elevator, it shows you the navigation path to the elevator, and if
So you can create a navigation, basically. So you can create a navigation, for example, like we did. So you can guide the users to the lift, to the elevator, and then show them that they need to go up. And then when they are on the right floor, that they need to go out. You can also add some text information. So you can tell them, let's say, floor 3. So when they go close to the elevator, to the lift, they can see, okay, floor 3, that's where I need to go. And then when they exit, as long as they are localizing, they can just follow the navigation.
Thank you.
Nice. And maybe just to add on top of that to say, as you say, May, we're constantly running Immersal's relocalization process during the flow. So if you imagine, if I'm walking through a space, our side, Zappar's side, is having to track that space in 30 frames per second, very rapidly. And so Zappar's bit of the technology is good for understanding that I've walked a meter forward, or I've turned around and I've walked a meter in that direction. What Immersal's technology is great for doing is saying, in this huge environment, you're in this location. And so what we do is we regularly localize with our technology, helping the user move about in immediate space. And once a second or so, we are localizing with Immersal's on-device technology to work out where they are in that big space. So let's say the user has gone from a well-defined environment, like the lobby of a building. They approach the elevator, and they go into the elevator, which is a not well-defined place because this elevator looks the same as the next one, looks the same as the next one. Then as soon as the user exits the elevator into then another well-defined space, we are still localizing with Immersal, so Immersal will be able to say, okay, I recognize you've now surfaced on floor 4, and so I can continue the experience from that point. Zappar's technology in the meantime has been able to say, okay, we reckon that they've moved this amount of space in their immediate area.
Yeah, do you have an idea of how it could work on smart glasses?
That's a good question. So smart glasses are actually quite a challenge because the headsets that are provided by the manufacturers, particularly the web browsers that run on the headsets, they support this technology called WebXR. That allows tools like Mattercraft to enable developing content for headsets that runs in the web. It doesn't need app submissions. The challenge is that the headset manufacturers do not provide camera access to the web browsers on their devices. Whilst the camera is shown to the user, and whilst the user may be moving through space and that's tracked by technology in the headset, the browser is doing all of that itself and abstracts that from the web page. So any web page running on Quest, for example, or in Pico, when no web page there can access the camera feed, like what's actually being seen by the cameras of the device. And that makes it really difficult for us because in order for the Immersal localization to work, we need camera images to see where the device is in the space. However, it's not all a bad story because simultaneously at Zappar, we have a headset of our own called Zapbox. And effectively, it's a little frame. I'd love for you guys to come and see it at our stand. It's a little frame that you put your phone in, comes with 2 controllers, and it enables Quest or Vision Pro type experiences. It's $99 rather than $3,000, so it scales in that way. But the important thing about it is because we at Zappar have been controlling how the software runs on that headset, the software actually runs on your phone and it goes into the frame of this headset that you put on, we have access to the camera. And so we can enable solutions like Immersal. And it's really interesting. It's basically the first time that's been possible to have web-delivered experiences for a headset that can do next-generation computer vision technology like Immersal's VPS system. The overriding feedback we get from Zapbox, which on the face of it is just strapping a phone in front of your face, the overriding feedback we get is that was way better than expected. And so please do come and see us at the booth, and you can give it a try and decide for yourself. In case it wasn't clear from the video, you just go straight forward, turn right, and that's where we are. So, nice. Any other questions?
Thank you for the presentation. What sort of performance or localization should we expect in an industrial environment, warehouse, piping, in a factory? Would this work?
Yeah, I think so. So there's maybe 2 parts to that. One is an Immersal performance part, and then the other is a sort of Mattercraft and Zappar's tracking part. So I don't know if you want to speak to the Immersal part.
Yes. So for the visual positioning, you just need to make sure that you have unique clues, unique visual clues, because that's what AI will leverage to be able to localize the device. But once you have the device localized there, yes, that's completely fine. So even if it's a little bit, like if it's too much repetitive, that could be a challenge, but it can be like twisted in a way that if you add some extra contents there to make sure that it will remain there, that should work. So.
Nice. And then on Zappar's side and the kind of creative tooling and end-user experience that sits on top of that, there's no specific concerns really for the web other than native. So anything you could do in a native app, you can do in the web. The only thing is, if you're delivering a lot of 3D content or these sorts of things, you have to be cognizant of the fact that the user is going to be treating it as if it's a web page rather than a downloaded app. So you'll want to keep the 3D models modest in terms of their file size, etc. And as long as that's done, then Zappar plus Immersal experience running in the web browser will run at 30 or 60 frames per second. It will feel perfectly smooth to the user. I mean, we say, can't believe it's not native at Zappar. It's a little bit of a poor joke, but it's like buttery smooth. That's how it should feel.
Okay. Well, thank you both.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.